Thank you so much. And first of all, thanks to Pune International Literature Festival for having me here and allowing me to speak to two authors I've been privileged to publish this year. 2023 has been very special with both Kainaz and Gajra publishing with Om Books. Thank you all of you. And मैंने अपने पैरों में कुल्हाड़ी मारी है in suggesting the subject for this session called the Feminine Psyche. I don't think anyone has sort of unraveled that, and we are not going to do that in 40 minutes, let alone with children from class 6 and 7 also around here. So, but we'll try our best. And Kainaz's book came out, I think, in February, March this year. Who Wants to Marry Jussawala? Lovely, lovely memoir. A memoir unlike, round of applause for her, please. A memoir at her age is, don't ask about age, but at her age is absolutely stunning to come across, and the kind of stuff that she has speaks a lot about her experiences, and we'll talk a little bit of that. Gajra, of course, has been a legend in her field of in TV screenwriting. I've known her for a long, long time, though this is probably the first time I've been able to work with her on a book, and I'm glad that it's a collected edition of all her short stories that have been published, and new ones as well, Autumn Blossoms. So, to begin with, open to both of you, is the feminine psyche, as we, and I'm going to put those words in quotes like that, something that you actively keep in mind while writing, or is it something that comes through organically as you write your stories, or you've also written stories, you've also written your memoir? Gajra is primarily fiction, so she's been delving in stories all her life. So is this something that comes to you organically, or is it something that you think about, okay, I'm going to address this feminine psyche?
Hi everyone, thank you for joining us. I'm Kainaz, and it's really nice to see all of you here, and I hope we can make this 45 minutes, 1 hour really worth it for y'all, and we're really open to questions, so please do so. We'll be happy to address them.
Absolutely, and please feel free. The last 10 minutes are not going to be reserved. You know, you can come in with your questions. Make it interactive. You might have better questions for Gajra and Kainaz than I have. I have done this so many times that I have the same old questions here. So please feel free to come in.
And we also have questions for him, being a man. So in the
Kainaz has several very dangerous tricks up her sleeve.
Yes. So stay on, okay, and wait. So yeah, coming to the question that you asked, Shantanu, it's a really interesting one, and I haven't thought about it before. When I'm writing, I don't really, I won't say unlike other authors, but most authors, I don't really plan much. I just get into the flow because I kind of have this really vivid imagination, and I don't know where it really comes from, but I kind of get all the experiences that I've gone through as a flight attendant for international airlines, when I was a journalist, and I think everything in me is kind of sunk in. And when I wrote my first book, in fact, Coffee Day, Champagne Nights, I wrote around 9 short stories, and then I finally published 7. And I realized after I did so, when people were actually reading it and commenting, that it's very women-centric. And I didn't realize that I was writing so much for the voice of a woman. I really did not realize. And they were not women who were only strong. They just were different. And they had these dark sides to them. And it was about the duality of the human mind, but it turned out to be mostly about the women in the book. And saying that, when I even wrote my memoir, of course, because it's about me, the female side is going to come on stronger. But again, not a conscious decision. It just came out like that, and it's nothing that...
Were you ever daunted by, somebody writing a memoir at a relatively young age, like in the sense... there's so much, I come across people who say, okay, no, I want to put it right for myself. Were you ever daunted by that? like, your understanding of life and your own
Yeah.
psyche, so to speak, will have developed only so much and could have probably seen much more
Yeah.
10, 15 years down the line.
Actually, not to sound like really strange, but I think I've lived for like 50 people together. Okay, the experiences that I've had, I would say, been there, done that. Don't want to remember much, also, and whatever I remember, I want to put in a memoir. I've really gone through things that I would say I've lived on the wild side. And I've also lived on the side of a convent, if so to speak. And I've gone to the entire spectrum of, things. And it's been really, it's been a journey which I felt everybody would benefit from at the end of the day. Because if I didn't just write a fun memo. I told a story where I've been having a lot of body positivity issues when I was younger. I went through bullying, a lot of shaming that all of us go through. I think we all go through, even as children, all of you kids, you're in school, right? So I've written about my school days where I felt that I was different from the rest. I was made to feel. Some of you may be really doing really well in academics, some in sports, some in your drama or whatever, and some people don't get a chance. I mean, some of you may just feel, I wish I could be like this. And I was that person who wished that someone heard me, someone could see me. So I went through a lot of anxiety and stress as a child when I was your age, when I can see so many children here, I can relate to you, or you may be able to relate to me today. And hence, I wrote that book to say that if a person like me, if a child like me who felt all these emotions and that anxiety, nervousness, low confidence can actually grow up and do something worthwhile in their life, then I think anyone can. And I think I wrote that book with mind that let me see if some people can benefit from that book. It didn't come initially, but as I wrote it, it kind of came. Yeah.
Gajra, if you could come in this, and also in the light of what we were discussing just before the session, the Prakriti and Purush thing, like, is that, and obviously it's meant quite a bit to you from your yoga teacher. So if you could.
Thank you, Shantanu. Regarding the conscious part, I think the best things in life always happen in a very unplanned way. But you sort of analyze the patterns later, and then the choice is up to you, man or woman, as to what you honestly choose to process from your discoveries about yourself. So I went to a girls' school, I went to a girls' college. Suddenly after college, one was thrown into a co-educational environment for the first time. I'm talking about my days in Delhi growing up. So I used to hear a lot of stories. It was a sheltered existence, but there was a lot of observation going on, which initially I sort of, channelized into my the articles and the pieces I would write as a journalist. I was a very bad journalist. I just practiced for about a year, and then I realized it was not for me. But the imagination then took over, and I just kept writing a whole lot of short stories. I think most of us begin that way. It's very daunting to write novels. It took me almost 15 years into full-time writing before I even told myself that I could do it. And I wrote my first novel in 2011. Basically, I started writing these small pieces, and like Kainaz said, when you start writing, it's just like someone sitting over your shoulder and making you, sort of guiding you. Someone said something very interesting to me recently. He said there are two types of writers. There are the architects and there are the gardeners. So the architects are those who plan everything. They plan how they're going to begin the story, what's their middle going to be, and what is their crescendo and climax going to be. Whereas there are also the nurturers and the gardeners who just keep watering the plant and see, and sometimes the very same seeds make for a beautiful plant, and there are times when your plant doesn't grow. So all of that has happened to me. When I published my first collection of short stories, which was quarter century ago almost, I observed that pattern in my writing, and I was a little rattled, but that time I had a lot of dreams of writing for films. And I met the kind of people who also were doing a lot of film work, and I started pitching my stories to them. To my disappointment, I realized that at that point of time, women centric stories were not being easily accepted by mainstream film people. And a lot of them told me to sort of mold my story, the same plot, but have a male protagonist. And in all fairness, I was tempted and I tried, but I made a hash of it. So I gave up and I decided to be honest with myself and keep writing what I really related to. So it was a lot of more writing about women, and then I drifted into television, which was again a very women centric medium. There was, however, one myth there, and I'm glad I sort of realized it was a myth that, you know, good work cannot happen on television. I've tried my best to prove that it is a struggle, it is difficult, but it is possible. So I did a lot of television work, and then when I was a little satiated with writing about women, I started writing my novels, which were either from a child's point of view or a more balanced, it was recreating a certain world like a film world or a three-generation story of women, etc. So there were many, yes, it was predominantly still about women, but it was expanding its tentacles. I think my writing started expanding tentacles after a while. So the conscious pattern has been coming and going over the years. My challenge, as I keep telling Shantanu, is to write the male-centric novels, which I hope he'll publish someday. Thank you.
Yeah. Are you, like, since you brought it up, are you an architect or are you a nurturer gardener when it comes to writing? That's
I'm
also
a
for
nurturer.
Kainaz. Kainaz also,
Yes.
but Gajra, if you could.
I'm a nurturer, but for my television work, I've become a very smart architect.
Okay. Kainaz?
Yeah, same. I think nurturer or gardener. I am the reaper. No, I think the second one more than the first.
Ripper, as in RIPPER? Because you rip apart everybody, you know, like.
I do?
Yeah.
No,
So
I don't.
your most of your you know, the posts you make and the kind of conversations you engage in, which comes across even in the book,
Yeah.
is about you know, saying it as it is, which is so,
Yeah.
you know, like.
Yeah, I'm surprised actually at myself. I didn't realize I was like that, but I think now that you mentioned, I feel
It's
I'm
a
very
remarkable quality, huh?
But I really,
And also-
I feel
also-
I underplayed it. No, I'm not. Okay.
No, you've not. But you come across as, you know, like full on in the way you kind of take down certain holy cows and address certain, and even going against politically correct women issues. You know, you have been very, you know, for example, we'll come to that question,
Yeah,
which is,
yeah.
you know, you've been totally, you shattered a certain thing when you mentioned, oh, these Louis Vuitton,
Vuitton, yeah.
Louis Vuitton. How do you pronounce that? I can't
Louis
even
Vuitton
pronounce that.
feminists.
Louis Vuitton feminists. So, you know, like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, please, if you could elaborate on that, because that's also a strong part of the
Yeah.
feminine psyche while writing, the world that you bring in.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, Shantanu, you know, I really didn't know that my posts come across like that. By the way, Instagram, Kainaz Jussawala, all of you all follow if you're on Instagram, since he mentioned it. All of you are Kainaz Jussawala, there's only one. Yeah, the LV feminist, it just came to me, you know, when you see people's posts, okay, nowadays, and everything is social media, isn't it? Whether we like it or not, we are all on social media. We even crib, we say things, but we are back on social media and we are posting about ourselves. I try to not post too much about me and what I'm wearing and what I'm doing, only because I feel that's, it's not shallow, it's just something I don't want to kind of endorse. I rather endorse something that is a little more intelligent, to at least my book at this point. But you realize how, you know, like when you talk about feminists, okay, this word itself is something that has been completely, it's huge and it's been misused. I feel it's used as a little game for a lot of people to meet up, to have this little social tea party, to have these conversations around tables. And honestly, they do nothing about it once you leave the place, okay? And that is not a feminist. The person whoever talks, even the women who talk, I mean, you'll go back home and you'll probably be doing haji naiji to your in-laws, to your husband. You'll probably go and treat your maid, as badly or as averagely as you shouldn't be doing. What is a true feminist, Shantanu and Gajra, I feel, everyone, is someone who actually takes action. Otherwise, it's pointless having talks. There's no point saying, "Arey, ye rape hua." What is the point in saying "ye hua" and then giving your whole thing on it if you're not going to do anything about it? I avoid political topics you must have realized, in my posts or in my books as well. Because it's...
Yeah, but then should you avoid? Is that because...
Yes, because if you talk about it, if you're not going to do it... Because when it comes to doing something, no one's going to stand up and no one's going to take a fall.
Are you standing up? Are you doing...
I'm not doing anything. I'm probably looking at my maid and seeing her granddaughter and saying, I'll pay for her education so that she's educated enough to understand that this is right and this is wrong. This is what I'll do at home. It starts at home. It's as simple as that. I'm not going to the villages and in the smaller towns, the rural areas where women are getting slapped around every single day. Even the people who work for me even my friends. I mean, forget everybody else. Even us, even my own people, my circle. There's violence in their own marriages. And they don't have the courage to step out. They call themselves feminists, and I have no judgments on that. Do what you want, you all are my friends. But you can't be a feminist and still be okay with that. Then you got to have the courage to walk out. Otherwise, you don't call yourself that. And then there are these people who have all these posts, and wherever they go, they're so brand conscious. They're spending like 3 or 4 lakhs on one handbag, which really, truly... it upsets me. Okay, do that. But then don't talk about, changing the world, and get out there, spend that money and find people who you can really help. Then you are a feminist. Otherwise, you're not. Don't do that.
It's interesting, and I come to Gajra with this whole feminist approach to writing also, to her characters. In her writing, I've kind of seen the kind of balance that that I find fascinating. I have seen her talk about, these are all 50 stories around women, centered around women, involving women. But she has a very, very kindly eye towards men, and she has a very critical eye towards her own sex, towards women also. You mentioned maids. There's this lovely story we have in this collection, Sisters in Arms, where this protagonist is actually is actually exploiting a maid, and she comes across as this wonderful person like you and me are, we are everything that a person should be. But, so you bring about a lot of that. So where does this thing come from, this understanding of the man and your critical take on a woman?
Well, I've always, for one, believed that, even if I were to use a cliche and say there are a lot of things we need to change in the world around us, it cannot be done only by women, by and for women. It has to be any notable social change or fight against evil has to be gender inclusive. Unless the men are sensitized, and you cannot sensitize any human being, whether it's a man or a woman, by alienating them. In my own workspace, I have come across wonderful, wonderful, supportive men who have actually, sometimes at the cost of being relegated sometimes, or being gracious towards a fellow woman worker, they have actually been very, very kind and giving. So that makes me feel very small and lousy, that how do I how can I just brand an entire gender as not being sensitive enough, or not being part of the change, the positive change that we all want to see. In fact, we were just talking a while ago about the fact that, today we've all become so stiff and serious that, we are worried about what is politically correct to say and what one shouldn't say. So the men sometimes have stopped joking. They feel so worried that, if they say something, it will be construed. They've stopped laughing. I've seen this change happening in my workplace, and I feel rather sad. This is not what we set out to do. So that's one thing. And the other is the fact that in the course of my television work, the kind of television work that I've done, I've observed women who are not like me. They don't have the kind of life or the kind of privileges, the kind of education. I think I am damn lucky, to have had all the things that they don't have. And yet, there have been innumerable occasions when I've learned something from them. It's not been that, I'm the educated and evolved one, so I can teach them a thing or two. Yes, maybe I can teach them a thing or two about science or, whatever. But there are a million things that I have observed and learned from women like that about native wisdom, what I can only call native wisdom. They are survivors. They are fighters, they are strugglers, and I have nothing but admiration for that. So, over the years, it's this combination of observing women who are very different from me and also observing the men around me that has probably, sort of caused that bit of balance in my stories, as you're pointing out.
I'll take on your writing for television. You mentioned, and a lot of us have the
I'm sorry, I just want to, I realize I had not answered the Purushan, the Prakriti question, which I just sort of, someone shared with me. Our yoga teacher was explaining to us that, I was complaining, I'm having all sorts of pains and aches, and I don't know why, what's happening. So he laughed and he said, do you know, in our Shastras, in our texts, basically, the man is a man, and women are nature. So I said, but isn't that a beautiful thing? Isn't it beautiful if a woman is like nature? Sometimes she's like the sun, sometimes she's like the rain. You don't know when she's going to start crying, or you don't know when it's suddenly going to become sunny all over again. So I think it's very beautiful. I'd love to revel in the fact that I am nature and I am every woman. So all these things make me quite fascinated with the lives of women.
I'll take you on the television writing thing, and also bring in Gajra there. But we're talking about the a special the Louis Vuitton feminists and all, and also it's all right to be sitting here in a privileged position that we have at a lit fest and talk about women and their understanding when 80% of that gender will not be reading these books. So how do you sort of does that, and your TV shows, Gajra, for good or for bad, there's a common perception that they are very regressive. Of course, if that's a perception even I had before I started interacting, and we spoke about those TV shows and what you have tried to bring in those shows to sort of highlight issues which have, even those issues have got overshadowed by the fact that there are the regressive elements in other shows are so severe. So how do you cope with that? The women in television come across as very, very different from the women you write about or the woman you write about in your book. Both of you, Gajra, if you could start off, and then Kainaz can take,
Right.
including the aspect of discussing these things at a privileged forum like a literature festival.
I think, the way we have many Indias, you have an India and a Bharat, you also have many worlds that women inhabit in India particularly. What tempts me to sort of continue working in television is the sheer power of the medium. And the fact that, frankly, if one were to just bring it down to numbers, a book that sells in thousands is a bestseller. But a show that runs into millions and sometimes billions of eyeballs is the best seller. So you can palpably make out that people are watching and people are getting influenced. So instead of complaining that it's a regressive medium, it would be nice if more people who are aware and evolved actually get into the medium and make that change, because it's really like chipping away at a stone, but it is possible, and I've seen those stones turn to pebbles, which are at least a little rounded. So, to give an example of Balika Vadhu, a lot of people would come up to me and say, aren't you reinforcing the fact that women are all about these heavy costumes and jewelry, etc., which women actually sleep in such clothes the way you show them in Balika Vadhu. And yes, one is guilty, one has to be a part of the demand of this particular medium. But if you look at the other side, in the temptation to see the latest styles of the Gajra cholis and the heavy jewelry, and frankly, all of us love jewelry and clothes. I don't see much wrong with it. But at least as they say in Hindi, उसी बहाने कुछ चार चीज़ें अच्छी भी आप कह पाते हो, and they are able to imbibe that, and they are able to sort of question a few wrong things they are seeing around them. So that's the dichotomy that I have over the years just learned to live with. I get very frustrated writing about such situations and within these limitations, which is why I write my books. So that's where I feel my individual voice has a chance to come out undiluted.
Kainaz, taking off from there, one of the things that we see in television writing and also that is something you have mentioned in conversations with me, is that, and which ties in with my next question on relationships, which are a critical part of, you addressing those situations. So, a woman being a woman's worst enemy, and you have been very vocal about that too. Could you sort of elaborate that? Do you think, where does that come from?
Actually,
and television shows, Saas, Bahu,
Yeah, I
and
think
Nanad,
that-
and
yeah,
all of that,
we see
the
that, right?
relationships are all skewed totally.
Balaji Telefilms is all about
Yeah,
that, isn't it? I mean, we had this first, that Kamolika coming in, and then from there everyone started becoming a Kamolika, and Kasauti was it? Whichever, yeah. So, so when you saw that, you kind of realized that was the first thing that I think when we used to watch Star TV and those days, I used to say, oh my gosh, this is what happens in household, in homes and things, because I've not seen that really personally, and I've been lucky enough that I have got friends who I never feel they have been, had that kind of rivalry or anything, because I myself keeps myself out of the race. Like I flew for a couple of quite a few years for an international airline, and I think 99% of the women would only carry, we always had to wear makeup. You have to, when you're a flight attendant, you have to come dressed to kill, right? And especially the domestic airlines. So when I was with Jet Airways, I just joined them for like a month. And I did 2 flights and I quit. I said, I can't do this. Every single day, they would make you stand and they will check your hair if it's out of place, if your lipstick is not smudged, and things like that. And I cannot do that, okay? That's just not me even now. So I think I just was like, why is this happening? And I realized that only women, the women are assessing the women, okay? And this just made me feel so awkward, like, why are you assessing us? There are boys out here. Acha, ho kya, shave kar diya, hair's all gelled up, done. For half an hour, we are like scrutinized. And if you're not okay, you don't go on a flight, or you are, you are made to walk, and then there was a bit of shaming there also. Okay, look at how she's walking, or look at what she's wearing. So of course, I quit immediately. Then I joined Swiss, and in that it was a little more relaxed. We were allowed to wear what we want. Then I was with another airline, BA. But still, I would feel the women just came. We had to be like getting all. So I refused to do that, because women were assessing women, and the eyeshadow has to be okay, the eyeliner. I don't believe in that. I just believed in one thing, that if there's an emergency on flight, okay, the person who is got red MAC ruby red is not going to save your ass. Sorry for the language. Not going to save you. The person who is most alert, most intelligent, who's most with it is going to save you, right? So for me, I was like very clear that I'm not going to do it. And if you want to mark me down, you mark me down. I carried on for 18 years in the airline. It was fine. The moment I stood my ground, everything was okay. But you need to act. So this is again women. So we have male flight attendants. We had pursers. But there was nothing for them. It was always us. So if you have this category, let's say of a form, and if you have to fill a form and you say, beauty standards, not beauty standards, but there was another word for makeup, well-groomed, the guys will always get that extremely, very, very good, like number 10. And women would be like 4, 5, 6, depends on how we are wearing. Why? Why? And that's women doing that, Ask a man to assess me, I'll get 10. But women assessing it, yeah. I mean, but for a woman to assess women and then, mark them down because they are not turned out. So these are small things which I would not say women's worst enemy, but it's like you are making the rules, you are making these unbelievable standards of beauty, which totally is irrelevant because of any woman, whatever size she is, whatever she is, if she has to perform on a flight or to do anything that is great, she doesn't have to look a certain way at all. And why? You have to look good. Why do you have to look good? Because you have to be presentable and really well turned out. For the men, right? You're actually saying for the men. I don't think they're saying you have to be very well turned and good looking for the women.
Yeah.
Women are not going to check you out. I mean, most women are not going to check you out. It's the male travelers, right? So you're already putting us in a slot.
Yeah.
So this is where it comes from, and this is where the whole thing comes from. But also, I feel that when you're really successful, okay, I feel. I mean, I've noticed this in my own book and my own things. Your followers and your fans, the men are still congratulating you. From 100 women, it's become 80 to 70, 60. The men are still going, all the best, Kainaz, how are you? Let's have a coffee. Chalta rehta hai. The women are still, this communications become lesser and lesser. And I'm like, why? I've never thought about that. But I've started noticing that, And to be honest, our point of contact nowadays is social media. It's not like we are meeting everyone every day. So you realize that these, and only if you like a woman's post, they will like you back. If this is what's happening. But the guys are not bothered of what you're putting. They keep saying likes and follows and comments and things like that. So this is a small thing that we need to realize, that we need to support each other. Yeah. And I try to be supportive, but honestly, even I am guilty of that. Like I'm selectively supportive as well. I mean, not because of woman-man thing. If someone supports me, then I support them wholeheartedly. Yeah.
Gajra, one related something.
No, I just wanted to say, and again, because I notice a lot of school kids in the audience. So the pressure to start looking good is now starting earlier and earlier. And there are 2 stories in this collection, about young girls, in fact, adolescent girls, who are so pressured, and I'm sure it's 20 times more than what this story describes, a story called Not Now. How you feel that, you are, whether you're even worthy of living or not living, or you don't matter at all, is measured by how you look. And that is absolutely horrible for a growing up young girl. So this beauty dilemma, this beauty conundrum is something that I feel very, very, very sad about. And I feel why do I say this?
Kainaz.
Why Kainaz, the way Kainaz has analyzed that it should go away. We should be judged, and we should judge others as in accordance with what they bring to the table in what really matters as human beings, irrespective of whether they're men or women, or girls and boys.
Yeah, just a couple of questions more before we throw it open to any questions here. Taking off from my previous question on women being a woman's enemy or friend, relationships, the way you as writers address relationships in a memoir, your relationship with your own self, or in this book, for example, in Autumn Blossoms, there are 3 different sections, stories of women, relationships with men, with women, and with their own self. How does you being women, impact those relationships? I heard a very interesting word recently, particularly in an era where it's no longer a relationship, it's more or less situationship. I was told that it's become situationship, you know. So how does being a woman help you address relationships with a woman, with a man, with your own selves?
So yeah, my book has my relationships with my romantic relationships with quite a few people
Including
who have
Shah Rukh Khan.
including Shah Rukh Khan. Yes, guys, just to let you all know, I don't know if you all of you all know, but I am Shah Rukh Khan's girlfriend. In case, yeah,
And-
kids. You all know na SRK Shah Rukh Khan मालूम है ना आप लोग को? You all know, right? हाँ, his girlfriend. Okay, Kainaz. Okay, just to let you all know. Okay, now we come from here, we get it from here, we take it from here. So yeah, I've written about my relationships, and I think it was really important to address them because I feel that I grew. I could do this journey. I couldn't have done this journey without having romantic relationships with men and with boys, and I've spoken about three or four of them in detail. And the only way I think I mean, it's the wrong thing to say, but a woman really discovers herself when she actually has a intimate or a full-blown relationship with another human being, with a man. We cannot assess anything without the backdrop. We can't compare it to anything if we don't have it. So you need to go through these experiences definitely, and when people marry the first person they know, that's also a journey, because I think after that then you get into the in-laws and so you kind of discover yourself with your kids and your in-laws, but your journey is different. My journey has been more of, having partners who I loved and cared, and even if they didn't work, I learned so much from them. I drew strength from it as well. When someone treated me badly, I was able to literally kick where it hurt them most, like in the literal sense. I was able to walk out of a volatile or an abusive kind of a situation. I won't say relationships, a situation. So this kind of thing, it's because of these things that actually I was able to find out what my strengths are, who I am, and then finally find myself. So in the book, or even in my life, I've always been looking out for the perfect partner. There is no perfect man, of course, but a perfect partner, according to me, a soulmate. We all are. We all want somebody. We all feel that, this is the person for us or whatever. So I've always been looking for that. And when it didn't happen, then I learned something from it and I went ahead. And it didn't go ahead too fast. But then, of course, the next relationship. And that's how you come to realize that finally, whatever you've been looking for in life, and we all will realize it someday, is yourself. Okay, there is no hero. There is no hero. We are our own hero, as simple as that. You can be most close to your husband, to your spouse, to your partner, to your kids. Finally, the only person in life that you can only count on and depend on is yourself. That is it. I mean, you don't know what tomorrow brings. The only person that you can look after your health, wealth, whatever, is you. And that's what I think I went through my journey. And I wanted to talk also about my grandmothers and things in the journey. So my family element came in, how they played a role. They were strong women. And I think they were my role models. People ask me, who are my role models? No, there is no role model besides my own family, my two grandmothers. In that day and age, one is a poet and till 100 she was quoting Shakespeare and Kipling. I mean, who quotes that at 100? I'm not talking about one line, I'm talking about poetry. Another grandmother who actually had a divorce in those days and was kicked out. And she had no choice but to survive. So you see these strong women, they were strong women. So I kind of drew out from them, and then this is how I, formed my journey, and that's how the thing happened. So, yeah.
Gajra, your take.
Right. There's a whole section in this collection, which is about women's relationships with themselves, which was the most difficult part of the book, the stories which are talking about women's relationships with themselves, because as Kainaz says, it's only when we are comfortable and we respect ourselves that we can have wholesome relationships with men and with other women, particularly with other women, which is something so complex that it takes it to another level altogether. So it's so important to be comfortable with yourself, and that does not always mean a successful or a happy ending short story. There are several stories in which it doesn't work out for the women, but perhaps when those stories end, and which I leave it to the reader to imagine, something much better comes out of it. You are more evolved and a better human being, just as Kainaz has described her own life about.
I think we are out of time, and so, yeah, I just.
It's been enlightening. It's amazing. This topic can go on, and I think we would be still sitting here for another 15, 20 minutes, half an hour, 1 hour, and we'll still be talking about it. It's not going to end, but I would also like to take some questions from the audience. We just have enough time for that. So, you've been waiting for a very long time. Please, ma'am.
Hello, good evening to all of you. My question was, being a lady filmmaker in this industry, it of course got you a lot of struggles. And there was a time where if you had female protagonists in your stories, but people asked you to like change it, was there a time that you got so tired of it that you fought back and you actually won? Was there a time? And if you could share that moment, please.
I fought back, but I didn't win. I think that's closer to reality. I did fight back, but you're not very powerful if you're not a filmmaker. I mean, I wish it was true what you described me as. I'm a writer, I'm not a filmmaker. But the makers do have a lot more say. So, and I don't blame them because they are the ones who are at the end of the day putting in the money. It's a very expensive business. So, you can't, मतलब पानी में रह के मगरमच्छ से बैर नहीं कर सकते आप.
That's reality bites.
Hello. I had 2-3 questions. Two got answered while during the discussion, but I still want to ask that I'm also a short story writer, and I also always get asked that why you always write strong characters. So while I agree with you totally that we can have a balance of Prakriti and Purush. Is it not our organic, character being a female that, we want to be wanted as well as we want to be unknockable, I would say, unbeatable. Right. So, portraying such characters is an inspiration. Like for others, whoever reads, because whenever I saw such thrillers, I have seen that television work. So it was always an inspiration that okay, she has gone through that and she has overcome. So such kind of balance should be more, or what do you say?
Ironically, I'd like to give you more of an insight through the television shows. When we work for television and we are given a certain brief. Yes, of course, the story, they always say that your character, your story has to be different from what has already been shown. But there are two things which one has to follow. One is you need to show a character's journey. So if you start with someone who's already figured out everything in life, there isn't much to look forward to for the reader or the viewer. So it's nice to see the growth. It's nice to see your female protagonist sometimes fall, failure, pick herself up again, and then maybe what we call gratification. So I don't think that per se a strong character would not be acceptable in a short story or a television series. It is the plot that you are weaving around it. For example, a strong woman can also fall is an interesting story for me. A strong woman is more of a statement for me. It's not a story. So I need to see a story there. I would just advise you to look at whatever you're writing in that light, because that's what sort of opens the eyes of those who are assessing your work.
I think we have just enough time for just 1 or 2 questions. Short ones. Let's go.
My question is to Shantanu.
Not working. Kainaz.
No problem. No, it's
Sorry.
that's okay.
I got your
Absolutely
name
okay.
right.
No, not at all.
Kainaz, you said you defined feminism at the very outset of your conversation. Does it mean, I mean, in my opinion, and I like to be corrected, that many women perceive or are anti-men to be a feminist?
Yeah, I think that's what the definition has become nowadays, right? It's sounding like anti-men. Like the moment a man, as we said, makes a small little, like a tiny slip or tiny slip of the tongue, I think he's doomed. While we kind of get away with everything. And I think we're taking full advantage of that. In fact, I was having interesting, so I don't know how many of you have watched the movie Animal. I don't want to bring it up for the various reasons, but you've watched, very good. One person has watched, two have watched, great. So in this, if the actor is, tying, he touches the feet of his going-to-be wife to propose to her, very sweet. He messes up, so he touches the feet, that also. But he's actually making her wear shoes and, tying her shoelaces while they're going, in the snow. Now, if we had that same thing, if the roles were reversed, imagine a woman is tying his shoelaces. Oh my gosh, what an uproar it would be. Like, she's tying his shoelaces. What does she think? Like, she's a servant office or what? That poor chap is doing is this. And, of course, he's been trolled for various other reasons. Another one today, which happened coincidentally, and I have to tell you this. I just happened to open my Instagram while I was coming. And I saw Twinkle Khanna's book launch. And her husband, of course, asked her in humor that you write only about women characters, strong characters. Are men irrelevant? So she just her head out, Twinkle Khanna, obviously going to be bestseller book, etc. And she says, men are like dessert, they're just to be enjoyed. And I said, if a man was to be asked this, a male author, chalo, koi bhi bola, Amish, Ashwin, whoever, not, I'm not saying anyone's, but, and says, women are like dessert, or women are like a starter just to be started. He would be, no one would publish him forever. No one would be published him forever. Like, he's banned from the industry. Oh, men are like dessert, just to enjoy them. And there was a laugh. And she says, oh, my husband is very supportive. And she smiled. But you know what I'm saying? Like, we've gotten away with everything. So we've used it pretty much to our advantage as well. But once again, it's very different from the urban women, city women, and women in the rural areas. They go through too much. Like, we are just talking about our backgrounds. We feel our men are supportive. The people who live in cities, mostly we have, my relationships, I've always had guys who are not chauvinists. And I used to wonder, why don't I have a man who's trying to control me? What is going on? Like, I have no idea. Like, why am I feeling so lost? Like, he should say, don't do this, don't do that. I was waiting. He's like, yeah, do what you want.
Where are the knights in shining armor? I want to know.
No nights. There's only nights and darkness nowadays.
Chauvinism is dead. So, anyone else? One more? Okay, the lady here.
Hi, actually my question is for all three of you. I've also been a journalist for a spell, and there comes a time in the annual calendar when we have to do, the top 50 women business leaders, or the top 50 women this, and the top 10, for which everything is sort of colored because of what all these women have achieved despite being women. That sort of seems to be the editorial conduct. And then we have fiction writing and memoirs which sort of draw on content because we are women. And, we want to color that writing with whatever our lives have given to us because of our, gender and sex. So which one sort of sustains itself, do you think, in the long term? Which one is good for business? Being the woman and having all this content, as in plain and simple, which one is it which is sustainable? The fact that the character or the author is a woman, or because she's just a human being? I read this book recently which was called The Day I Became a Runner by Sohini Chattopadhyay, and at the end of it you realize it's not about sports, it's not about women, it's just about being, and it's just about living and living through your struggles and overcoming it by choosing sport. So what's good for business?
I really don't know if anything's good for the publishing business anymore. At least good writing is good for publishing business. But frankly, when I took on Autumn Blossoms, we did not take it on as, initially it was not because there are 50 stories by a woman achiever. No. These were good stories. A lot of them had been published before, and felt that, you know, a lot of them needed to reach out, not because they were, bottom line, good stories. That women were at the center of those stories is a different matter. That Gajra is writing those stories is a different matter. So, I hope business-wise that makes sense. You know, I'm told fiction doesn't sell. I'm told short stories don't sell even more, like even they sell even less. But business-wise, I'm not sure. But I took on those stories and I interacted with Gajra primarily because they are good stories that needed to be read, that I loved reading and I wanted to share with the world. Similarly for Kainaz, that who wants to marry Kai Jussawala, it could have been who wants to marry Shantanu Ray. For all I care, if somebody were doing a book that's so much fun, that's taking down so many aspects of contemporary living, talking about the issues that body shaming, being an introvert, being bullied, those are aspects I have been through myself in my life as a school kid, all of that. So again, it was just happenstance that Kai happened to be a woman, you know. So